his intuition kept saying, you have to move, you have to move. And he's like, I don't want to move. I've lived here my whole life. This is where my life is. This is where I want to stay. But his kids had moved away, and eventually he got sick enough where he needed to move in with his family. So he left his house. He moved, I think, across the country. And when he went to sell his house, they found black mold had riddled his house. And so it activated that disease in his body. And there are a lot of environmental factors that can be at play. So the intuition might help us find ways to navigate that, to get in and out of health.
Hello, and welcome to this week's Factors in Action. This is Karla, and I'm with Liz in person, and we are going to be talking about the spiritual factors today.
As you know, we break the radical remission factors into different categories: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. So today we're going to talk about deepening your spiritual connection and following your intuition. And they're just super cool factors. It's really fun to be able to incorporate these into a healing plan.
And when it comes to deepening your spiritual connection, it's really about what matters to you from a spiritual perspective. And as a reminder, this isn't about religion. It is about spirituality. And you can connect to your spirituality in a myriad of ways. So through your creative endeavors, whether you're a painter, a musician, an artist, a writer, all of those things could be how you connect. And you can also connect via nature. Whenever you're feeling connected to a power bigger than yourself, that's where spiritual connection is most noticeable and where you can really start to deepen that practice.
Yeah, and a lot of radical remission survivors describe that as a feeling of unconditional love. That anything that you're doing where you feel really connected and you feel that sensation of unconditional love. And I think we can all remember a time in our bodies where we have felt that deep sense of connection to someone or something, and really allow ourselves to feel that love. And in that process, that is activating our internal pharmacy, as we like to say, getting those happy hormones flooding our bodies to activate that immune system. And that's why we talk about all of this through these healing factors. We really want to make sure that people understand that these factors do matter and they do play a part in physical healing.
Yeah. How do you deepen your spiritual practice, Liz? What do you do for a daily practice?
It's a great question. I don't access it in a traditional religious sense. I have had different experiences throughout my life with religion, and it really was a beautiful place for that. But presently, I really spend more time within meditation. I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of reflection. I do a lot of pause and internalize and find gratitude. But I think the most accessible way for me is in nature. And I can just sit and listen to the sounds and let them kind of come in, listen to the birds, listen to the air. Oddly enough, I love the sound of wind. Mm-hmm. So something like that. But something I do describe when we do the Radical Remission workshop is just imagine yourself standing at the bottom of a 10-story waterfall, and the awe that you feel when you see nature. When you're standing at the edge of a cliff in Ireland, looking over the cliffs of Moher, or at the Grand Canyon, looking down into this big, vast
gorgeous
space, right, yeah, canyon on the earth, and how it allows you to feel small. You just feel like you are just a little dot on this planet, or maybe even looking up into space and seeing all the stars and all the galaxies. My son wants to become an astronomer, and he talks to me about all these different parts of the galaxy that I've never heard about, and just the awe that I hear in his voice when he talks about the depth of the universe and how far out things can go. And that's beautiful, especially when you can witness other people accessing their spirituality. So how about you?
For me, it's definitely present for me in nature. But I also find spiritual connection in focusing on oneness with others, in connection with people, and really seeing people, eye to eye, and really understanding that that person is one with me. That's my belief. And being kind to people. A new term I found, exclamation points of a life. Nice. Right? To be an exclamation point. I get to, impact other people with my happiness and joy and kindness and
paying it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and something I've witnessed Karla do, even as simple as really seeing people. We'll sit at a restaurant and we'll order a food, and the server comes up and she always asks them their name, and always makes sure the whole time that we're eating, she refers to them by name, makes eye contact, lets them see that they are seen, and she's acknowledging them as a human being. And that is a lesson that I have taken and I embody throughout just the daily nuances of life. When someone's wearing a name tag at a store that you're at, mention them by name.
Yeah.
It allows that person to feel that connection, something greater than themselves.
Right. And isn't that all what we need these days, is more connection to one another? It's an opportunity to meet a new friend, right? And even if it's a stranger that doesn't look like somebody you'd ever be friends with, who knows? Think about your friends. They probably didn't look like people you'd be friends with when you first met them. Maybe some. But I think it's really a great way to understand that we are all connected and that there's something bigger than us that's connecting us.
Yeah, and I do love that concept of paying it forward. I had a client once a long time ago, actually, and just reminding me of that story where his strong reason for living as we were working through the factors became paying it forward.
Uh-huh.
And he really wanted to send gifts to people that they never would know who they were from. And so we found a way for him to connect with his adult daughter. His daughter was in her 20s, and he decided he was going to start sending her friends things that they wanted that they would never know who they were from, and they would just receive something that they wanted. And he got so much joy out of selecting it and thinking about what they would want. And
Cool.
it was so cool. This is a perfect example of how we learn from the people we work with and how rewarding it is you could see the smiles on our faces if you could see us in the room, but really just the adoration that we get when we learn what other people do in situations like this. So that was a really beautiful one. And knowing that when someone receives that gift, kind of dipping into social support here, but when you receive that gift, then they're in a place where they want to pay it forward. And that's that whole concept of, you make a difference and someone else will feel the benefit and they'll make a difference.
Right.
Really great.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. The other factor is following your intuition. And it's important that we tap into that intuition. There's the scientific fact that we have an intuition. And not only does it reside in our brain, it resides in our gut too. So there is truth to the fact that when you get a feeling in your gut, you should really be paying attention to it. But we're not trained how to use our intuition, or what is intuition, or why does it matter? And intuition to me is that small voice within that's connected directly to the divine. For me, right? May not be that way for everybody. You can think of it as your conscience or your Jiminy Cricket. Did you watch Pinocchio when you were a kid?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, there's that voice within you that is speaking up for you. And that voice is not your ego. That voice is your higher power, your higher self connected to a higher power. And it typically knows best. And if we just practice listening to it and paying attention to it, it gets louder for us. It gets more pronounced for us. And I love, using the guided visualization that we do in the workshops to help people tap into their inner wisdom or their inner intuition. And that can be really powerful. And let's be sure to link them to that meditation that's on our page, because that's a really great meditation, the one we're talking about, to tap into your inner wisdom. It's important for me. It helps me to, when I'm trying to make a decision about something, I can rely on that. If I just get quiet long enough and stop all the noise and all the input, then my intuition can speak up and it can help me to make decisions, whether it's about my healthcare or something else. As simple as, which way do I want to drive to the office today? Am I going to go right or am I going to go straight ahead? And that's a simple way to practice. Like, check in with your intuition before you get to that point where you make that decision. What does your intuition tell you to do? See how it pans out for you.
Yeah, for me, I definitely do that body check. I feel my intuition is in my reactions of my body. So if I'm feeling a certain way and it's contradictory to what my brain is feeling or wanting me to do, I will pause and I will kind of close my eyes and feel into my body. And I could even picture a scenario and picture a second scenario and feel in my body which one feels like the direction I need to go. And it really does communicate to me. And that's something that it takes a lot of effort. I definitely was not doing that my whole life. That was more of a more recent years practice, but it's a practice. It's a muscle that you need to maintain and grow and work on every day. We talk about, a lot of times in our workshops, we'll talk about, how can we access this intuition? So we will do different exercises, like when you're standing and waiting for an elevator, which one is going to open first? Just guess. your phone's ringing or you get a text, pause before you look. Who is it? And see if you can kind of, without giving some analysis to it, who is it? Just off the top of your head. There's so many really cool ways to really work with that. One other way we talk about is write a little question on a piece of paper before you go to bed, fold it up, put it under your pillow, and then sleep. And while you're sleeping, your subconscious will communicate and it will talk and it will process and it will do its work. And then when you wake up, have a journal nearby and on your bedside and pull that note out, read the question again, and then dive into the journal and just start writing, free writing. And you can just write the question at the top and start answering it, or just jot down words that come to mind or feelings or colors, something that will help you get started. And then naturally you will find your way into more progression into journaling. And there's a lot of wisdom that can be found in the answers. And I have loved that practice. That's been a really powerful one for me.
Yeah. And I think we should caution, it may not work the very first time you do it, but again, as you practice some of these things, it will get better and you will start to hear from your intuition more.
Yeah. And some other ways that are mentioned, even in radical remission, Dr. Turner found when she did the interviews that she heard that people would have heard an internal voice, and they often were afraid that they were kind of crazy and losing their mind because they started hearing voices telling them what they should be doing. And she found it consistently enough that she has seen that become a way that intuition has shown up for people. And it's not insanity. It is their intuition talking to them. And it's really powerful to hear those stories. One of the stories that I believe is mentioned in Radical Remission was a man who was later in his years. He had terminal diagnosis and his intuition kept saying, you have to move, you have to move. And he's like, I don't want to move. I've lived here my whole life. This is where my life is. This is where I want to stay. But his kids had moved away, and eventually he got sick enough where he needed to move in with his family. So he left his house. He moved, I think, across the country. And when he went to sell his house, they found black mold had riddled his house. And so it had activated that disease in his body. And there are a lot of environmental factors that can be at play. So the intuition might help us find ways to navigate that, to get in and out of health. So he was able to find remission after leaving that house, as much as he didn't want to when he finally got there. So that's a perfect example of, someone's literally hearing the words, you have to move. And he finally, when he does it, intuition knows best.
That's amazing. Yeah. And not everybody hears it as a voice. People will see things or get images. Me, I have knowings, just inner knowing. So it's not really a voice or an image. So we're all a little bit different in how it shows up for us, but trust that it's there and trust that it can help you and really start to tap into it to help you make those important decisions and live your best life.
Yeah. And you have shared with me I think one of the best quotes that I really like is, when you pray, you're asking, and when you meditate, you're receiving.
You're listening and receiving. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining this Factor in Action episode. We're so thrilled that you took the time to give a listen. So please like, follow, and subscribe to the YouTube channel for the Health Navigators and all of our different social media platforms. You can follow the link below and really take an opportunity to look at what we've done and follow us on social media and see where we go.